Picture this. You walk into Walmart or Costco, head to the coffee aisle, and the prices staring back at you have jumped overnight. The brand you've been buying for years now costs noticeably more. In fact, some bags are up by more than X% in just the last 7 days. That's not a minor fluctuation. That's a surge you can feel in your wallet. And it's not just about coffee lovers feeling the pinch. This sudden spike is the direct result of the Trump Tariffs 2025, a new 50% import duty on coffee from Brazil. Why Brazil? Because it's the single largest supplier of coffee beans to the United States, accounting for roughly 1/3 of everything we drink. These beans are the backbone of countless supermarket brands, from budget blends to premium roasts. When you put a heavy tariff on such a critical source, the ripple effect hits fast. Prices move up, supply chains scramble, and everyday Americans find their morning ritual costing far more than they expected. The question is, how far will it go? And who will bear the brunt? Big corporations, or you, the consumer? If your morning cup of coffee suddenly cost 50% more, would you keep buying it? Would you switch brands, cut back, or find another way to get your caffeine fix? This isn't just a story about trade policy. It's about the real-life impact of decisions made in Washington and how they land right in your kitchen. So grab your mug, because in the next few minutes, we're breaking down exactly what's brewing behind these higher prices. How the 50% coffee tariff came to life, and why it matters. The story of America's latest coffee price shock didn't start on store shelves. It began quietly in early July 2025, when whispers of a potential tariff on Brazilian coffee started circulating in Washington. At first, it sounded like just another trade rumor, but as the days went by, those whispers turned into official statements. Importers took notice, and they didn't waste any time. By mid-July, warehouses in major port cities were filling up as companies rushed to bring in as much Brazilian coffee as possible before the tariff took effect. This pre-tariff surge wasn't about speculation. It was about survival in a business where even a few cents per pound can make or break margins. Then came the date that's now etched in the coffee trade calendar: August 6, 2025. That's when the Trump administration's 50% tariff on Brazilian coffee officially kicked in. It wasn't just a standalone measure. This tariff was part of a broader trade package designed to reshape America's import priorities. According to administration officials, the goal is to reduce dependence on foreign suppliers and strengthen domestic production. That's where Hawaii and Puerto Rico come into the picture. These U.S. regions produce high-quality coffee, but their output is tiny compared to Brazil's, less than 5% of what Americans drink every year. Supporters of the tariff argue that protecting and expanding production in these areas will create jobs, secure supply chains, and insulate the U.S. from global disruptions. Critics, however, warn that replacing Brazil's massive contribution is unrealistic in the short term. The sheer scale of Brazil's role, supplying roughly 1/3 of all U.S. coffee imports, means any disruption is bound to push prices higher and squeeze consumers. From the moment the policy was announced to its official start date, the coffee market moved at breakneck speed. And now, the ripple effects are starting to reach your morning cup. Why coffee prices were already high before the tariff? Long before the 50% tariff was signed into law, coffee prices were already climbing to levels many Americans hadn't seen in years. The trouble began thousands of miles away, in Brazil's key coffee-producing regions of Minas Gerais and São Paulo. For months, farmers there battled an unrelenting drought. Reservoirs dropped, irrigation systems struggled, and coffee trees went without the steady moisture they need to produce healthy blooms. Inconsistent flowering meant smaller harvests and weaker yields. Then, as if the drought wasn't enough, a rare and unseasonable frost swept across the region. The cold snap burned leaves, damaged young branches, and in some cases killed entire coffee plants. When a coffee tree is destroyed, there's no quick fix. Replanting takes years before new trees are mature enough to harvest. With production down sharply, Brazil's exportable supply tightened, and global traders reacted. By February 2025, Arabica coffee futures had surged to nearly $4 per pound, the highest in many years. For context, that's well above the long-term average, signaling a market under significant strain. Importers, roasters, and retailers were already paying more just to keep beans flowing into their supply chains. Those higher costs were quietly working their way onto supermarket shelves. So, when the 50% tariff came along, it didn't create a problem from scratch. It amplified an existing one. Economists call it a double shock. First, a natural supply crisis that pushed prices up. Second, a policy-driven cost increase layered right on top. Here's how the mechanics work. When supply drops, prices rise as buyers compete for limited stock. Add a tariff, and every bag crossing the border now carries an extra tax, which importers pass along to roasters, who pass it along to retailers, and finally, to you. That's why your coffee aisle prices jumped so fast. It's not just one event. It's the collision of climate disaster and political decision, all funneled into the cost of your morning cup. How higher coffee prices are hitting households, retail, and the food industry. For the average household, a small jump in the price of coffee might not seem catastrophic at first glance. But let's break it down. A 1-pound bag of Arabica coffee used to cost you X dollars. Now, with futures at nearly $4 per pound and a 50% tariff on top, that same bag could be $1.20 to $1.50 more. Brewed at home, a pound yields roughly 30 to 45 cups. If you drink 2 cups a day, that's an extra $1.60 to $2.25 a month. About $20 to $27 more a year. For bigger households or heavier coffee drinkers, the increase could easily top $50 annually. And for millions of Americans on fixed incomes, retirees relying on Social Security, low-income families juggling rising utility and grocery bills, even an extra $20 can force trade-offs. Some will cut their coffee intake in half. Others will switch to cheaper blends heavy on Robusta beans, which are more bitter but cost less. And some may give up coffee altogether, swapping it for tea or other caffeine sources. In the retail world, Walmart, Costco, and other major chains have already adapted. Some roasters are blending smaller amounts of Brazilian beans with coffee from Colombia, Vietnam, or Central America to keep prices competitive. Others are reformulating entire product lines, retiring certain premium blends in favor of budget-friendly versions. The result? Price changes are not uniform. In some regions, value brands have jumped the most, while in others, premium labels saw the steepest hikes. Packaging size matters too. A 12-ounce bag might go up more on a per-pound basis than a bulk club-size bag. A before-after snapshot of store shelves tells the story. Where you once saw $8.99 for a 2-pound bag, you might now see $10.49 or higher. Receipts from just weeks apart showed the same brand, same size, but a clear difference in price. Then there's the food service sector. Coffee shops, diners, and restaurants are feeling the squeeze as wholesale prices jump. With margins already thin, they have limited options. Raise menu prices, shrink cup sizes, add a surcharge, or quietly switch to lower quality beans. Some cafes are even changing their espresso recipes to stretch each batch further. For loyal customers, that might mean your daily latte tastes just a bit different and costs a little more. From the kitchen table to the corner cafe, the 50% coffee tariff isn't just a headline. It's a chain reaction changing how Americans buy, brew, and enjoy their coffee. Global reactions and the policy battle in Washington. The moment Washington imposed a 50% tariff on Brazilian coffee, the international market responded, and Brazil wasted no time charting a new course. In a matter of weeks, Brazil authorized 183 exporters to ship coffee directly to China, signaling a clear pivot toward Asia. For decades, the United States had been one of Brazil's most important coffee buyers. But, with tariffs making U.S. sales less attractive, Brazil's strategy is shifting toward countries with lower trade barriers and growing demand. China, in particular, has been expanding its coffee culture, with consumption rising steadily year after year. By opening the door to hundreds of Brazilian exporters, China positioned itself as a willing and ready alternative market. The risk for the U.S.? Losing its status as a priority customer. If Brazilian beans that once stocked American shelves are redirected to Asia, U.S. importers could face a tighter supply for years, even if tariffs are rolled back in the future. And that's not the only front where Brazil is pushing back. Officials in Brasilia have filed a formal complaint with the World Trade Organization, WTO, arguing that the 50% tariff violates trade rules and acts as an unfair barrier. WTO disputes are rarely quick. Cases can stretch months, even years, before a resolution. In the meantime, the political fight over coffee tariffs is heating up at home. Supporters of the policy say it's a rare opportunity to strengthen domestic coffee production in Hawaii and Puerto Rico, create jobs, and reduce reliance on foreign suppliers. They argue that the short-term price pain is worth the long-term security of a more self-reliant supply chain. Opponents see it very differently. They warn that Hawaii and Puerto Rico simply cannot produce anywhere near the volume needed to replace Brazil's contribution. That means the benefits go to a small group of farmers, while millions of consumers pay higher prices every single day. Several lawmakers from both sides of the aisle are now pushing for a targeted coffee tariff exemption. The idea is to shield everyday consumers from the sharpest price increases while still pursuing broader trade goals. Whether that exemption becomes reality will depend on how the political winds shift and how much pressure voters put on their representatives. One thing is certain: the coffee tariff has moved beyond economics. It's now a flashpoint in the global trade arena and a talking point in America's ongoing debate over how to balance domestic industry protection with consumer affordability. 3 possible outcomes, and how to adapt. The road ahead for coffee prices will depend heavily on how trade negotiations, market conditions, and political decisions play out over the next 6 to 12 months. Here are 3 realistic scenarios, and what they could mean for your morning cup. Scenario 1. Partial exemption. If lawmakers succeed in carving out a targeted exemption for coffee, importers could see tariffs reduced or removed on certain volumes. That would take some of the upward pressure off prices and help stabilize the market. Retailers might roll back recent hikes, and premium blends could become more affordable again. For consumers, it would feel like a sigh of relief, though prices might not return to pre-tariff levels overnight. Scenario 2. Tariffs stay in place if the 50% tariff holds. Today's elevated prices will likely become the new normal retailers, and roasters will continue blending beans from multiple origins to control costs. But Brazil's unique flavor and supply volume will remain hard to replace. Consumers may need to permanently adjust their habits, switching brands, changing brewing methods, or accepting higher grocery bills. Scenario 3. Escalation. If Brazil retaliates with its own trade measures or diverts even more supply to Asia and Europe, U.S. importers could face a deeper shortage. Prices could spike further, and certain blends might vanish from shelves altogether. This is the high-risk scenario that would hit both consumers and businesses hardest. Practical steps for consumers. Buy in bulk or larger package sizes to lower the per-pound cost. Track sales cycles at your local store and stock up during promotions. Experiment with blends containing more Robusta beans. They're cheaper and can be flavorful when roasted well. Consider brewing methods that maximize flavor with less coffee, like AeroPress or pour over. Advice for the food and beverage industry. Negotiate long-term contracts with roasters to lock in prices before further increases. Be transparent with customers about temporary surcharges or recipe changes. Test alternative blends that maintain quality while controlling costs. No matter which path unfolds, staying informed and making small adjustments now can soften the impact later. Because when it comes to coffee, preparation isn't just about brewing, it's about being ready for whatever the market serves next. In just a few short months, we've watched a trade policy in Washington ripple through the global supply chain, hit store shelves, and land directly in your grocery bill. A 50% tariff on Brazilian coffee didn't just change import paperwork, it changed the price of your daily ritual. From farmers in Minas Gerais to roasters in the U.S., and from Walmart aisles to your kitchen counter, every link in the chain has felt the impact. Now, we want to hear from you. How have coffee prices changed where you live? Have you switched brands, cut back, or stayed loyal to your favorite blend? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Your story might help someone else navigate these changes. And if you found this breakdown useful, hit like, subscribe, turn on notifications, and stay tuned for updates, especially if a tariff exemption is on the horizon.